I'm pleased to be joined on Pioneers Pregame Live by the assistant coach of your Pios and Eugene Barber, ahead of tonight's road matchup versus the Auburn Doubledays. And Coach, getting started 9 games in 6 days, and your team comes away with 7 wins, including a couple of walk-offs, strong pitching performances up and down the rotation. Now that you've had a couple days to breathe, what are your takeaways from that stretch?
The few days off were nice, just kind of, to let it all kind of sink in, going 7-2 in a week. We'll take that any day, but the off days definitely rewarded the guys that put out the effort to get those wins.
I want to throw it back to game 1 of that doubleheader in Jamestown on Sunday. Garrett Rochon, lights out over 6 innings. What stood out to you about Garrett's stuff that made him so effective against a very potent Tarp Skunks lineup?
I think he did a really good job just having consistent arm action, just really tunneling all of his pitches. Really benefited him. He had a lot of ugly swings out there and got a lot of soft contact without having to overexert himself going deep into that ball game.
Game 2 saw a tough luck loss for Bobby Boying despite a solid start. The team only scored 1 run, but there were signs of growth in battling with 2 strikes. Earlier this season, you mentioned that the hitter's approach was a bit of a concern in the early going, but are you starting to see more consistency now at the plate overall?
Yeah, definitely seeing some more consistency. Just, the willing to fight, not to give away an at-bat when you could, easily just roll over as far as, just kind of taking the strikeout, throwing a weak, swing out there just to kind of get out of being in a tough spot. But the guys are doing a great job, being good at fighting up there at the plate, willing to compete when they even have 2 strikes. The next thing is that now we got to hit some of those pitches earlier in the count, when a pitcher makes a mistake.
You're facing an Auburn Doubledays lineup that's had success against your staff, 32 runs across 3 ball games. What's the biggest adjustment or focus for your pitchers heading into tonight's matchup?
Big thing is that just want to get ahead early. And again, just having a good tunneling action on our pitch selection out there, having good sequences to make the hitters feel uncomfortable so that way they can't settle into their approach. And Auburn's done a fantastic job against us, really just sitting in and getting ahead in their counts so that way their hitters can attack us.
What kind of intangible qualities does this Auburn team bring that's made them such a challenging opponent so far this year?
I wouldn't say anything in particular. I would just say that, they're pretty much willing to run guys a little bit longer. And it's no disrespect to the staff over there. It's just, kind of seeing what happens in this league and around summer baseball when you run out of lineup or you kind of let starters eat too many innings early. It can have a potential impact, down the playoff stretch in July with the guys not having the velo or legs not staying under the headers.
Shortstop Aiden Grabowski seems to be back in a big way after a small dip in production, taking home West Division Player of the Week. How important was his offensive resurgence during last week's stretch and helping steady the team?
Aiden's a great kid, really plays the game hard, and there's always a smile on his face. Just kind of the big thing was, you can kind of tell when a guy is quote-unquote stat slumping, the stats may show a slump, but, the view and actual evaluation of the player shows something 100% different. And that's kind of where Aiden was. We got a few other guys in that boat that are going to be turning it around shortly.
A recent pair of Northwood Timberwolves have come into town in both Anthony Manganiello and Brendan Hammer, and both have made an instant impact. What have you noticed about their approaches that makes them tough outs in your lineup?
Just really guys that are strong character. Again, just like we go back to the start of the interview, is that guys willing to compete with 2 strikes. And when they get their pitch, they're going to swing and they're going to hit it.
On the defensive side, from you and Coach Drum and the entire rest of the coaching staff, is it a tough decision, especially when you have 2 lights-out defenders in Brendan Hammer and John Simmons at third base? And does it fluctuate depending on how good the offensive roster is that you're facing in that given night?
Again, just going back earlier in the interview, being able to cycle guys in and give guys rest, especially like last week we had 9 games. If you try to run that the rest of the season, guys are going to be exhausted. Guys get sick, guys get banged up. There's a lot of things that can happen, and just rolling a guy out there day in and day out at this point in the season, we want to be able to exchange guys and not lose anything, really offensively or defensively out there. And luckily we have a group that can do that.
Another demanding stretch begins tonight, 6 games in 5 days. After seeing the group handling last week's grind, do you feel this team's more prepared now to navigate the chaos of the schedule?
Yeah, again, just being able to, exchange guys, replace guys, move guys around to give guys breaks, keep some bats in the lineup. just the willingness to win the game, doing it for the whole team effort, whether if it's, like we've done in the past with some pinch hitting or some pinch running or some defensive, late game adjustments. We just kind of have a group that's, buying into that philosophy, next man up. And we love that mentality. And, it's, again, hey, we've been through 9, we can definitely do 6. And Farrell, if you remember at the start of the year, we sat down around June 9th and, you kind of asked about the 3-game skid to start out the season, and now look at us now.
Yeah, a big difference from that time. And got one more question for you. Some bullpen guys mentioned how tricky the early season schedule was with uneven rest in between outings. Now that we are 17 games in with a much better record, has it become easier to establish a rhythm and maintain a more traditional bullpen rotation?
100%. And even on these few off days, we had guys throwing live ABs on Monday just to get some extra work in and just kind of work on some stuff at the done. And give our hitters a chance to get some at-bats during the off days, so it's good all around. And, just getting the guys into a rhythm has really benefited us in the past week or so.
Coach, thanks for your time and best of luck.
Thank you.